In this video, I'm going to explain what a 16-8 intermittent fasting diet is, and we'll cover some meal plans as well as benefits and potential drawbacks of the 16-8 diet. Now, intermittent fasting involves limiting your daily food intake to a certain window of time. Now, one of the most popular types of intermittent fasting is a diet that's called the 16-8 intermittent fasting diet. And essentially, this involves limiting your intake of food and drinks which contain calories to a set window of 8 hours a day. Now, for the remaining 16 hours, you abstain from food and drink. However, you're still allowed to drink water and other no-calorie beverages, things like plain coffee or tea. Now, importantly, you can repeat this cycle as frequently as you like, from just once or twice a week to every day, and it will all depend on your personal preference as well as what fits in with your lifestyle. Now, whilst other diets often set out strict rules, 16-8 intermittent fasting is easy to follow, and it might provide measurable results with minimal disruption to your diet, and it's generally considered less restrictive and more flexible than many other diets, and it works well with most lifestyles. So let's start off by discussing choosing a time window. So if you're to think about potentially starting this diet, the first important thing that you want to do is choose a time window. And to get started, you should begin by picking an 8-hour window and limiting your food intake to that time span. Now, this is obviously going to depend on your lifestyle, but some popular 8-hour time windows to eat are from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m, as well as 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Now, many people prefer to eat between noon and 8 p.m. since the fast is overnight and you can skip breakfast, but you can still eat a balanced lunch and dinner along with a few snacks throughout the day. But again, this is going to depend on your job and lifestyle. Obviously, if you're working night shifts, then you might want to have your 8-hour eating window starting at midnight and ending at 8 a.m. This will essentially allow you to eat during your night shift and have a breakfast at 7 a.m. before you then go to sleep during the day. Now, other people will opt to eat between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m, which allows plenty of time for a healthy breakfast around 9 a.m, a standard lunch around noon, and a light or early dinner around 4:30 p.m. before starting your fast. Basically, what I'm trying to convey by this is that there is no one fixed way to do things. The best thing to do is that when you're starting out, try to experiment and pick the time frame that best fits your schedule, and you might want to set a timer at both the beginning and the end of your eating window on your phone to remind you when to start and stop eating. So now we've discussed the time window, let's just discuss some of the food and meal plans. Now, to maximise the potential health benefits of any diet, it's important to stick to nutritious whole foods and beverages during your eating period. Filling up on nutrient-rich foods will basically help you to round out your diet and support a healthy weight. And trying to balance each meal with a variety of whole foods can include things like fruits, so things like apples, bananas, berries, oranges, pears or tomatoes, vegetables, so things like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, cucumbers and leafy greens, things like spinach and kale. Whole grains are really important, so things like barley, buckwheat, quinoa, rice and oats. Healthy fats, so things like olive oil and avocados, as well as importantly protein sources, so things like eggs, fish, meat, poultry, nuts and seeds. Now, in terms of drinking, I would just encourage you to drink water and avoid any calorie beverages. So these are things like pops and sodas. I would just stay very clear of those. It's important to also avoid ultra-processed foods, things like packaged snacks, deep fried items, sugary drinks, and most frozen meals. Now, these foods are often full of bad sugars and preservatives, which are going to spike your blood sugars quickly, and they're going to make you feel more hungry. And ultra-processed foods have actually been linked with a whole host of negative health outcomes, so things like type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, certain cancers, and even dementia. So now we've covered some of the potential timings as well as foods that you might want to eat on a 16-8 intermittent fasting diet. What are some of the potential benefits of this diet? Well, the first potential benefit of restricting your eating window to a few hours a day means that you can cut your calorie intake over the course of the day, which may in turn contribute to weight loss. For example, one review of the scientific literature on intermittent fasting found that in 11 of the 13 studies on intermittent fasting, it was reported there was statistically significant significant weight loss in participants. Now, one of the other major potential benefits of a 16-8 diet is improving blood sugar control. Intermittent fasting has been shown to reduce fasting insulin and blood sugar levels, potentially decreasing your risk of diabetes. Now, if you've got type 2 diabetes, intermittent fasting might be an effective intervention, but you should speak to your own doctor before embarking on this diet to see if it will work for you. Now, to ensure I give a balanced picture of 16-8 intermittent fasting, it's important to discuss some of the potential drawbacks. Now, the first thing to state is that it's important that if you decide to embark on this type of fasting, that you do it gradually and you consider stopping or consulting your doctor if you've got any concerns or you experience any negative symptoms. One of the other downsides is the potential for overeating as well as potential weight gain, and that's because restricting your intake to just 8 hours a day may cause some people to eat more than usual during the eating periods in an attempt to basically make up for the hours spent fasting. Now, this may lead to weight gain, digestive problems, as well as unhealthy eating habits. Now, interestingly, current research doesn't suggest that intermittent fasting leads to any more weight loss than typical diets that recommend overall calorie restriction. Both eating patterns may lead to moderate weight loss. Now, if weight loss is your primary goal, you might prefer to lower your calorie intake instead of fasting intermittently to prevent the overeating that can occur when restricting intake to certain time windows. Now, other people can experience short-term physical symptoms. These include things like hunger, weakness, and fatigue, although these often subside once you get into a routine. Finally, what are my top tips if you are to consider 16-8 intermittent fasting? Well, I'd suggest that if you do want to start this, you should start off with just 1 to 2 days a week and see if it works for you. You should try out different timings to see which fits in with your lifestyle, and if you've got a long-term health condition, you should first of all consult your doctors to discuss whether or not this is the right type of dieting for you. This is really important if you're taking any medications, if you've got diabetes, low blood pressure, or a history of disordered eating. It's also really important not to view 16-8 intermittent fasting as a substitute for eating a balanced diet rich in whole foods, and similarly, intermittent fasting is discouraged if you're trying to conceive, you're pregnant, or you're breastfeeding. If you've got any concerns or experience any side effects whilst fasting, it's really important that you consult your own doctor. Finally, I've got to state that this is intended as a general educational resource and not an individual clinical advice video, and so I can't provide any tailored advice. If you've got any other questions, please leave them in the comments section of the video, and it'd be great if you could share your own experiences with intermittent fasting to help others.